Everyone, welcome back to the latest edition of our Y&T deep dive on Tim's Vinyl Confessions. John the Music not joining me once again, and I don't know about you, John. I'm really excited to dig into this album.
I certainly am, Tim. This is, oh gosh, one of their best, no doubt about it. Melodic rock at its finest, right here.
Yeah, and I mean, just let's take a moment to just appreciate John Taylor Dismuke's
Oh yes,
artwork on here. I mean, just to me, this raises the point. This is why you should have at least some vinyl in your collection, so you can, the back cover's cool. They kind of continue the snake thing there, and what John's got there is the mid 2000s reissue, I believe, that they put out on their own label. Yeah,
same one.
Yeah,
same exact one.
That's actually Mean Streak is the fifth Y&T album, the third one on A&M under the name Y&T, and it's a big deal for me because I've said many times I got into the band in 1990, but the first thing I actually bought from them was this cassette right here.
Right.
I happened to find it, and I knew enough about Y&T that I knew that this was probably old stock because I think all the A&M albums were, or at least most of them were out of print. So I thought,
right,
chances are I'm going to get way into this band, and I'll wish I'd bought this when I'd seen it. And
nice.
It's not my favorite, but it's a 10. You know what I mean? Like it would be second or third on my list underneath, like maybe 10 and Earthshaker. I mean, this is it's just so good. It's just such a good album.
It really is. I mean, and you listen to this album, you're like, this is where you see A&M really drop the ball. Why did you only give this one video? Why did you only push one song to radio? You listen to this album, I'm hearing 3 or 4 songs I could have heard on AOR on a regular basis.
Yeah. It boggles the mind. It was their first album that charted, and I don't think there's any coincidence that the first time that they get a video, they have an album that sells enough to chart. Now it only hit 103
right
on Billboard, but it was a showing for the first time. And yeah, I get quite not upset, but it leads back to the reason that I have been shouting the praises of this band ever since I've been into them, and why we're both in here saying, hey, why wasn't this band superstars? Like, why?
Right.
Because you take one listen to Mean Streak and it's there, everything's there. It's heavier than than their later stuff, but it's still melodic, it's still catchy, and there was a market for music like this. The fact that Mean Streak, the song, as heavy as it is, got enough airplay to make number 25 on Billboard mainstream rock chart. Stations were playing them. They started to get on some bigger tours. So we'll get into it song by song. So yeah, we'll talk about the title song, and I want to show this off because this is something that this kind of proves that A&M in the UK were a little bit more hands-on with promoting the band, because I love this. This is a 12-inch single to Mean Streak. I mean, I don't like this as much as I like the actual album artwork, but it's pretty cool. I like the logo with the barbed wire. There's the snake on it again, and this is photos of the band on the back, and this also has Straight Through the Heart and Dirty Girl, and then advertising the album it's on. I mean, this is it's a hard rock masterpiece. It's, old school, you could call it metal. It's pretty darn heavy and menacing sounding, and it's probably, other than if you were to ask people about Y&T, if they didn't tell you Summertime Girls, this would probably be the next song you'd hear mentioned as best known. It got out there. It got on some compilations. It's fantastic. It's fantastic. Everything about it it's got a fantastic riff. Leonard Hayes' drums, the drum fills are all just perfect. Dave's vocals are getting better, a little bit better all the time. I don't know what more I could say about Mean Streak. The guitar solo is so good. I mean, I don't know,
Absolutely.
what more can you say about Mean Streak? It's fantastic.
What I've been saying on the Judas Priest series that I've been doing with our friend John Clauser on my music corner is the one thing that really set Judas Priest apart from a lot of bands with their songs is their great bridges. And you start to hear it here on Mean Street.
Yeah, yeah,
That bridge on the
yeah.
title song and a few others we're going to talk about are outstanding. And these songs, which are already great, go up a notch because of these fantastic bridges. And you see a lot of that on the next album, in Rock We Trust, as well.
Yeah, they're getting better as songwriters,
Absolutely.
just like honing their craft. I want to show this off too. This is a Canadian version of Mean Streak.
Okay.
And Canadian
Nice.
A&M cassettes look very different. Like, so cassettes look very, very different depending on where you pick them up.
Exactly.
But yeah. So yeah, Mean Streak, and you're right. The bridge, it could be different now. And that part, I can't imagine how they would have gone from the second chorus right into the solo. If that's all we'd ever heard, that's all we'd ever know. But it's that adding something a little bit extra to the song. I suppose we should talk about the one video from the album. Kind of scary.
Yeah, agreed with that.
The special effects in the video. It doesn't matter how many times I've seen it. When that tone comes out of her mouth, it's like, it's not fake looking. I mean, it's fake, but it's there was a high quality of effects that were used,
Right.
A little bit of money was spent. I thought the band looked really cool in the video. Something else that I like about it is how, and I like when they would do this, and I'm sure there's an exact name for it, but during the solo, they keep the camera on Dave's guitar, and the guitar doesn't move. Everything else moves around it. They did it on, there's two other videos I can think of where they did that. They did it on Rick Emmett's guitar on Triumph's Follow Your Heart video.
Okay.
And Gary Moore on Out in the Fields.
Okay.
There's a part during the solo where they everything else is moving around, but the guitar stays the same. And I don't know what they call it. Obviously, it was a thing. That's all like within like a 2-year period. So there must have been a name for that camera effect. So, but, production values on the video, but they should have done more. I mean, so we've long talked about why wasn't there videos from Earthshaker and Black Tiger? Well, okay, so now they've got a chance, and they still only gave them one video. I think they owed them. I think they owed them at least two.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Absolutely. Because like I said, some of these songs should have been on AOR. There's an easy second video that we're going to talk about soon. It's on the first side of the album. I mean, this song.
Want to get into the second track, and I mentioned it because it was on that Mean Streak single, Straight Through the Heart.
Yes.
I love this song, but I have to go right to the thing that I still get goosebumps thinking about it. First time I listened to this, I had headphones on. I was listening to my little Walkman, and in the guitar solo is great, but Dave had this technique that at the time I'd never heard anything like it, where he had one of his I don't know if he's got one of his pickups turned off on his Les Paul, so then he'll like flicker the toggle switch so it cuts in and out, and it sounds like a helicopter, or sounds like it's fluttering effect, and it goes from one speaker to the other. And the first time I heard it, because he's done it in several solos, he did it in Black Tiger, but on this album, this is where he did it. And I'm listening. I think I was playing Nintendo, and I'm listening. I'm like, whoa, what was that? And I rewound the tape and I listened to that again. I'm like, that is the coolest thing I've ever heard. I like the rest of the song too, obviously, and the stops and starts, and the attitude and the riff, and it's just another great track. Now, I wouldn't have made this a single, but it's just another solid album track.
Correct. I would, same thing. I don't think this would have been a single or an AOR track, but it is heavier. I was reading in the book that you did on Y&T, and Peter Kerr said that this sounds a little bit like Dio. I agree, musically. I think the same thing when I listen to this song. It sounds like something musically that could have been from Holy Diver in the way the song is constructed. And I mean,
Yeah.
as high praise, because those early Dio albums were great.
Yeah, Martin Popoff and Peter Kerr both heard different Dio songs that
Right.
this was in the same, and it's in the wheelhouse because Dio was heavy, but it was, they were very melodic too.
They were.
This is, Y&T would get more melodic than that, but on right here, they're in
Yes.
that, and there's a reason why they toured with Dio, and Ronnie was always such a big fan of Dave's, so makes sense.
Absolutely. Excellent track though.
Yeah. Third song, and I think this is the one you were talking about, one of my absolute favorites in the album,
Oh, yeah.
Lonely Side of Town. I mean, right from the get-go, that opening, it's not arpeggiated, but it's not a riff. It's a picked guitar part. It's just beautiful and just perfect attack on the strings. Nice guitar line that comes in once the whole band kicks in, and great vocal from Dave. And this song sort of occupies the spot on the album the way that Don't Want to Lose did on Black Tiger. It still rocks. It's not a ballad by any stretch of the imagination. It's not pop. It's just a really good melodic rock song.
Absolutely. Yeah. I love the little call and response during
Yeah.
the chorus by the band and Dave.
Yeah.
It's just so just very melodic, very strong melodic rock song here. Excellent. And kind of been forgotten in the annals of Y&T. It's
Yeah.
not one that you hear about much, but I hear this like, how did I not hear this on Rock 107 when I was 12, or later on? Yeah, just wanted to, these early albums from Earthshaker through, at least in Rock We Trust, there are so many great melodic deep cuts that you're like, why did I not hear this more? That's how I feel about Lonely Side of Town. And I did see them do this live as a request the first time I saw them live. And they played it in full too, and they played straight through the heart, into Lonely Side of Town, into Surrender. They were the first three songs we mentioned. When Dave said, any requests? And those were the first three. I said Surrender, but they didn't play them as a medley. They played them in full. And and this is when Brad Lang was in the band, and they were playing with Brad for a long time. And Brad was a longtime fan of this band, because I talked to Brad after the show, and he says, I'm in dreamland. I've loved this band since the beginning. So he knew that catalog. And by that point, all those other guys were there quite a few years. So they could have done anything. They probably could have played anything the crowd asked for that night. Lonely Side of Town is a wonderful song, though.
Yeah, it really is. And it's a great lyric. We talk about it a lot in the book, how it's kind of that side of, someone who's, we'll say it's the case that it's autobiographical, even though it's not really said, but someone who's, gone out into the world, and then they come home, and because they've had a certain amount of success elsewhere, come back, and people are like, oh, well, look who's back, or look who thinks they're Mr. Big Shot, and all they want to do is talk to people. And it's it says in the song, with my old friends, it's not the same. And it's that, you might think that this person is living the life now, but at the same time, they could be hundreds and thousands of dollars in debt to the record label, but they got a record out and they've got their name on a record. They got to be rock stars and millionaires, right? It's not the case. Stephen Reed put it very, very well in the book. It's a look behind the curtain that bands didn't always give you.
That's true.
It's that look. It's not all. It's, yes, we're having fun, but it's not all. It's cracked up to be.
There's a lot of hard work. I mean, it may look like glamour and glitz on the outside, but like you said, they were probably there's probably a lot going through their minds at this point. Oh, we hope this album better hit because we're in debt to A&M. Yeah,
we got to recoup some of the money for touring and merchandise and all that stuff. And plus, they're making a stir in the UK. They're making a stir in Japan. They're not a UK or Japanese band. They're American.
Right.
and they're
Yes.
struggling in their home country. You know what I mean? It's this identity. It's not an identity crisis, but it's this lopsided thing where they're doing well, but it's for whatever reason wasn't translating in their home country, which is, that's kind of been the narrative with Y&T. They've been popular in pockets of the U.S. Sadly, sadly, the northeastern part is never been a stronghold for them, and which is the
Yeah.
closest to me.
Right.
But enough about me. Great song. It's a great song. I mean, and I like the fact that could have easily been, lyrically, and I'm assuming that's Phil that wrote the lyrics. Lyrically, it could have been a love song, which would have been fine too, but they went somewhere different. They went somewhere different with it, which is really cool. Next up, side one closer. I've got another UK 12-inch single to show you, show everyone. Midnight in Tokyo.
Nice.
And these are, I believe, yes, these are the photos from the back of the album. And this also has Barroom Boogie and Squeeze on it. And there are tour dates on the bottom with the band Rock Goddess, who are also on A&M Records. Now, what's this? It's simple. It's a simple concept, but it's smart marketing by A&M in the UK. It's got Barroom Boogie and Squeeze on here from the previous two albums.
Right.
That's great advertising for Black Tiger and Earthshaker.
Yes, it is.
And of course, Mean Streak is the focus. So, and I should mention, Mean Streak, the song, went all the way to number 41 in the UK this is the pop charts, because
right.
It's weird. Like the UK charts were so funny because there's so many pop artists that were so popular over there that I've never heard of, but yet they have Iron Maiden songs make the top 20 and things like that. And again, I have to bring up Stephen Reed again, who's from Scotland, but he said one of his regrets is that Mean Streak peaked at number 41, because if it had even gone to 40, they would have gotten on Top of the Pops. And Top of the Pops was a big deal. You'd get all of a sudden, even if you didn't perform on there, they'd mention your name in your song. So
that's right.
Just one of those near misses, right? But exactly. Midnight Tokyo is very, very similar in its makeup to Forever, which was the song that closed side one of Black Tiger, but it's not a copy. It starts out with this great twin lead melody and a halftime drum signature. And then, like Forever, it goes into a gallop. It almost goes into like an Iron Maiden. And it's basically this one. I think this one is a love song. It's a love song to Japan.
Yes,
they've done their first Japanese tour, and they've done very, very well. And the fans were so respectful, and they wanted to pay tribute to that. And what a great song. Dave just really shines vocally on this. This was after Mean Streak. Would you say this is probably the song from the album that stuck in the set list the longest?
It is.
Yeah.
Oh, it is. I've seen them do it live, and it is one of their most endearing songs of this day. It's but it's just a fantastic, well crafted song. And it's not really a heavy song. It's
no.
The only thing that screams real rock and roll is those unison guitar lines out of Thin Lizzy. I'm sorry, but yeah. But when you listen to the verses, it kind of has a jazz feel, because
they could do that. And you're right, it breaks right down to like rim shot and like ride cymbal, and it's
yeah.
How many metal bands could you snap? You couldn't snap your fingers to Twisted Sister.
Exactly.
I love Twisted Sister, but these guys had something more.
They did. And the build to the chorus works like a charm. Phil's bass playing is spectacular on this song. So many great counter bass lines in here in the pre-chorus before it gets into that chorus. The chorus is very simple, very memorable, excellent. This is just a well-crafted song, one of their best. I mean, it's about Tokyo, but we love it here in America. It's just a great song. Very melodic, and I love the gong at the end.
Oh yeah.
And the gong at the end is perfect, and then it goes back into that. You hear the guitars fading into the distance, and you just hear that cymbal.
Yeah. Phil, I think
Perfect.
it's guitar and bass. They're both doing harmonics. So you hear that chime, boom, 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 boom,
Right.
almost like chimes, like bells ringing, and it's just so effective. It's just good arranging. This is another CD. This is the first CD of Mean Streak that I got in the mid '90s.
Okay.
This is Jap again, and this is a good place to mention this because I got it. If it wasn't for Japan, I would have taken even longer to get these albums on CD because you could get them in Japan. This is an A&M reissue. It actually says Polydor on the bottom right, and found this in Montreal. So this is a little bit different, and it's got, of course, it's got the anyone who's bought Japanese CDs knows it's got the lyrics in Japanese and English, and it's got a little write up on the band. And I wish I could read Japanese, so I'd like to know what it says. And also want to talk about the production on here. Chris Tsangarides, the late Chris Tsangarides. I think this production is so much better than Black Tiger.
I agree completely.
It's cleaner. It's more crisp. It's not 100 miles away from it as far as like the sound, but it's just better. Like just it's easier on the ears. There's nothing. It's got more treble in it. Black Tiger's production always sounded a little muffled to me for some reason. The guitars are just blazing. They're just bright. Dave's vocals are captured really well, but you know, Leonard Hayes, I don't know song for song, but this might be his best drum performance on a single album. He is just on it, whatever it is that needs to be done. And I'm glad you mentioned that, those jazzy things, because we're going to get into that too, with the first track on side 2, Breaking Away. It's a great melodic rock song, but they do things that other bands don't do. After the solo section, it just goes down, and Leonard's doing 4 on the floor, and Phil's just playing do just eighth notes, and then it goes to this really laid back section. Dave comes in with the vocals, but before it gets a little bit too, there's a pick stroke, and then back into it.
Yep.
Dynamics. I don't know how many times the word dynamics comes up in the book, usually said by me, but they had such a sense of how to keep you from getting bored of listening to a song. To throw in something, even though it might be a repeat of a part they've played before. Now it's just something a little bit different about it. And it's just another great song.
Do you think that Jakey Lee was listening to this album pretty hard? Because when I listen to this riff, especially at the beginning, that sounds almost like a dead ringer for Shot in the Dark off of Ultimate Sin by Ozzy Osbourne in '86.
Wow. That was did he write that, or did Bob Daisley write that, or did they co-write it?
I'm gonna say Bob was mostly writing the lyrics.
Oh, okay. I never thought of that before, but I got to be honest, I'm not a huge Ozzy fan, but that's my favorite Ozzy song. So maybe there is something to it, but it's catchy. It's heavy.
Similar. Yeah, it's very similar.
Yeah.
Yes, but again, another strong rocking track, but those little nuances that Y&T are doing that no other band is really doing at this time in this genre. I mean, it's just another very well crafted song, heavier song, but it's very good.
Yeah. This album to me is like Earthshaker. It's as much as you might like a band, when someone gets into a band, there are certain albums that you almost want to tell them, don't listen to that one yet. Or listen to it. Let me talk you through this one or something. There's something about it where you go, oh, listening to that cold, they might be like, what is this? But Mean Streak, and I'm going to say Earthshaker too, those are pretty safe albums you can give someone and say, look, knowing what you like, there's nothing on here not to like.
What I would say though, Tim, about Mean Streak is I think it's a little bit more of a grower, because I think the songs overall on Earthshaker are more immediate. They have more hooks.
Yeah.
But this one, and if you're a melodic rock fan, if you're an AOR fan, this is the album.
Yeah. There's more depth. There's a little bit more depth in the songwriting, even though
there is.
Shaker's fantastic, but this just shows you how fast they were growing.
Absolutely.
And lest anyone think that there's, there's nothing heavy on here, Hang 'em High is next up, and it's heavy, it's fast. It is such a rocker. It's got that killer riff. I mean, Joey Alves was so precise with his rhythm guitar playing. He brought the riffs. Most of the time, he wrote the riffs. And this
Yes.
one is just so great. It breaks into that the military sounding section in the middle. Leonard's doing the fills on the snare drum, and even then it goes like it's not quite as heavy all the time. Dynamics, Jimmy Page would call it light and shade. Well,
Yes.
they're using that here.
Right.
It's Hang 'em High is just a great, rocker built for the stage, built to open shows. It's like open fire. It can open a show and just get people really excited. And great vocals, still great vocals and vocal harmonies in this song.
Absolutely. And you're talking about Joey Alves. I haven't talked enough about his guitar playing on here. Excellent rhythm guitar player. What you really hear on Hang 'em High is the space between the notes on those riffs. We have the space between the notes, that just makes that riff a little bit heavier, a little more memorable too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a better riff than just something that Now you hear that a little bit, that same pattern I just said, you hear that right in the beginning. But the riffs during the verses, there's that space in there that really brings you in. And another great chorus here. It's not just a very simple chorus vocal. I mean, you got the call and response between Dave and the other guys, but lyrically, it's a strong chorus.
Yeah.
And again, like you were saying, that breakdown there with the march beat that Leonard's playing, and that builds in momentum before the solo. It just works. It just works like magic. Excellent track.
Yeah, it's got those, it's tricky, it's got those little like you got to be on that stuff. It's I don't know if you'd call that syncopated, but like the band's just got to be
It would be
locked right in, or else it could fall apart. And
yeah, exactly. You can't go and play these. You can't phone these songs in.
No,
because there's these little nuances in these songs that make the number one. They make the song, but you got to be on. You can't just drink a couple 6-packs and go play these songs.
Yeah,
I mean, because there's just, you might think, okay, verse, chorus, verse. No, there's these little parts of these songs, especially on this album, that differentiate it and make it even a stronger album. And this isn't easy music to play.
No, it's really not. You got to know how. Yeah. And they've always had good musicians in the band because you have to.
Always.
Yeah. Next up is Take You to the Limit. This song, and I think you talk about it. I think it's you. I've always compared it to Dirty Girl because it's got that dun,
yes,
dun, dun, dun. Now, I don't think it's as good a track, but it's not a carbon copy. But it does slow things. It's the only sort of breathing space you really get on side two because it's pretty relentless. So I guess it's a good spot for a song like this.
Right. You were mentioning light and shade that Jimmy Page said. That's what I hear in this song. A lot quiet into loud here.
Yeah.
But when it's loud, it's not ferocious.
No.
It just works in the confines of the song.
Yep.
Very melodic. Yeah, it's not one of my favorite songs in the album, but again, I just think it's very solid. Another great slice of AOR here. Would have worked if it was given a shot.
Yeah, and I think that it's the first time that Dave ever tries his falsetto. Does that a little bit in the beginning of it.
Yeah,
just he's improving. He's improving as a vocalist. What I like about it's got the clean sounding, sort of plucky guitar, and then Leonard comes in, like he just comes in with the big snare roll, and they're off to the races. But it's not. It never gets out of control. There's a and the middle section, Phil. I mean, that guy as a bass player, do like these bass. I'm sorry, but a lot of my favorites from the '80s, they dumbed down the bass.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's true.
Even let's talk about Kiss in the '80s.
I was just thinking about them when you said that.
But just eighth note, 16th
Yeah,
notes.
just
Now
play
some
with
of
the
that is
kick.
because now some of that's because Gene wasn't all focused, but when you listen to Kiss in the 70s, Gene's bass lines were quite inventive.
They
But
were.
but a lot of bands in the 80s, they didn't pay attention to the bass lines. Phil always had these really cool bass lines, and they knew their place. He wasn't, it wasn't like he wasn't Geddy Lee. He wasn't overplaying because it wouldn't have
Right.
fit this type of music. But he knew what to do, what not to do, and those little bass lines would just give the song a little bit of a lift, especially when the guitars are quieter. Phil can come out to play a little bit, and Phil would probably be, he always struck me as a sort of a self-deprecating type, but he's a better bass player than he would ever have given himself credit for. Very,
Agreed.
very smart. He just knew what, and maybe it was instinctive. Maybe he just said, "I think go for this part here and see what happens." So, a lot of that on this album. On this song, you really hear it.
And what Phil was the ultimate team player, I think. What's best for this song? I think that was Phil.
Yeah.
Because Phil, and like you said, he was self-deprecating. As if you watch the On With the Show documentary, you really see that about
Oh yeah,
Phil.
yeah,
Just a real
yeah,
fun-loving guy, but a serious musician. But it was what was best for the song, what was best for the album, you know. Yeah, he was, and again, wonderful bass player. I mean,
yeah.
sometimes it's about what you don't play, and sometimes it's about doing something that's a little different that's gonna stand out from a lot of other songs, and he had that in spades.
Yeah. Second to last track is Sentimental Fool. This one is interesting to me because it was co-written by David Seif and Robert Schulman, who co-produced or who produced Earthshaker and co-wrote a lot of the songs on there. But they never worked with them again. So I've always wondered if this song wasn't left over from the Earthshaker sessions, just because of that songwriting. I can't imagine them bringing them back to co-write one song. And I like the song, but I always wondered if this wasn't A&M saying, we could really use something a little bit more commercial sounding. I don't know. Again, I can't shoot holes in it for anything. It's well sung. It's well played, but it is lighter than everything else on the album. And the production's almost too heavy for the song.
Yeah, it's almost like a pop rock song.
Yeah.
But then that's not saying anything negative, because I like a lot of that music also. I mean, a great song is a great song regardless of the genre.
Yeah.
But when you hear this, it's a little bit of an outlier in that aspect, but the melodies are so strong on it. The harmonies are very good. When you hear that chorus, especially, you're thinking, yeah, this is more like a pop song, but
Yeah.
it's very good. It's just a bit of an outlier
Yeah.
again, but just because you have these heavy guitars throughout the album, I mean, tons of melody, but this sounds like it could have been done by a pop band. It could have been a hit
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
someone else.
And I almost wonder, like, maybe they should have waited and maybe this would benefit more from like a Tom Allen production or saved it for Down for the Count, where it wouldn't
Yeah.
have sounded quite so out of place. But I will say that, yeah, I think one of the things that makes it lighter is that when it gets to the chorus, you've still got Joey, or maybe it's Dave. I don't know who did what, but there's still the heavy chords, but you've got this nice clean guitar in the chorus, and that really separates it. It's
Yes.
not all dun, 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 dun. It's got this nice clean guitar in the chorus, which is different from, except for maybe Lonely Side of Town, but even that, it's just not the same. But a good song, and um, yeah, I just think it stands out on the album for that reason. It's not a bad reason. It's
Right.
just it's just it's just different. And back when I got into YT, and actually for many many years, I wasn't familiar with Thin Lizzy. But when I hear stuff like Midnight in Tokyo and the lead for, or the melody for Sentimental Fool, I have to think they were influenced by Thin Lizzy with those
Oh
twin lines.
yes. Oh, no question. And when Thin Lizzy brought when they got Scott Gorham in there with Brian Robertson on Nightlife, that was the sound that most of us fell in love with, was that unison twin guitar sound.
Yeah.
And they would do that right through like Chinatown. And yes, they were listening to Thin Lizzy. There's a lot of Thin Lizzy on this album. I mean, particularly on the songs that we mentioned.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the
For them to
craftsmanship
for
too.
them to write those twin lead parts and just weave them right into the song, I have to think that was a Thin Lizzy influence.
Oh yes.
And finally, we get the only, I guess you'd call, party rocker on the album with Down and Dirty. Now, this is funny. I actually have this is a promotional record,
Okay.
and but because it's a white label, this is radio station only. There's something written on here, and I can't really tell if that was part of the radio station's call letter, but it's US, so it's interesting they would push this song, but I think they kind of figured maybe this song would get airplay in the way AC/DC was getting airplay. And I like this song, but I've talked about this too. Y&T were almost, how can I say this? They're almost too good to just do your party rock songs. They did songs that you wanted to party rock too, but there was more to them. This almost, and Dave's vocals at this point, they hadn't quite gotten to the point where he could almost loosen up, because it almost, when he sings "We're Getting Down and Dirty," it almost sounds like he's singing it through clenched teeth, like he's just. And I know they were working so hard and they were trying to make it, and that determination, and it's almost too much for a song like this. Maybe I'm overthinking it, but it's a good song. It's a good, solid party rock song. Leonard starts it off with the flam and it's good. I just think this band, this was not where they made their bread and butter, was on these types of songs.
I agree with you 100%, and I don't think you're overthinking it at all. I think a song like this is beneath them. This is the song that stops me from giving this album a 10. And I'm glad it's at the end, because I got all these other great songs right before it. It's too cliched. It sounds like something A&M said, okay, you got to do a song like this. So
you got to do something like "Come On, Feel the Noise," or
you got to do something like "Come On." You got to do something that the 13-year-olds, like I would have been 12 at this time, that they can get into. And it's like, no, this is just, by Y&T standards, it's almost dumb. I mean, it just, like, the song itself is okay. The lyrics are what really don't resonate with me at all. And even the chorus is dumb. And even the way, like, I talk about how the call and response in the chorus is just so good, but here it just sounds lame. It's just not good. I mean, everything else on here is so good, and you listen to this, you're like,
I think my favorite part of the song is before the solo. But then they have to ruin it with "Roll Me in the Mud, baby." Like,
yes. Yeah.
it almost occupies the barroom boogie space on this album. But I do like the construction of the song. I'm not putting down bands that do these types of songs and are good at it. Not everybody can. Not everybody can just throw out these real simple rock anthems. Some bands are really good at it, like Twisted Sister were really good, and D could sell them with his voice. He made you want to put your fist. He made you want to put your fist in the air. And also he was a front man. He was up front, and in an AC/DC, I know the guys in Y&T all loved AC/DC, and they toured with them. Kind of neat. They toured with them with Bon and with Brian, but there's only one AC/DC. I know Crocus tried to be another AC/DC, but there's only one, and they could do a song like this with a wink and a smile, and it, like I said, with Y&T, there's too serious an approach to it, and it almost sounds like a gun to the head.
It does.
And yet what they did with this, they threw out a promotional single. They could have at least shot a video for it. Maybe it would have gotten some play. So I don't know. I still give the album a 10 because everything else is so good, and it's Down and Dirty is not atrocious. It's just, it's a good it's a good song to close off with. I'm glad they didn't open, a side with it, because it's not worthy of opening a side. But we should also talk about like the bonus version we both have, which has a 10th track on it called "I'm Not Sorry." And I laugh, I like the fact when they did these that they had the liner notes in them.
Yes.
And who is it? It's Phil. And this song, I'm gonna read exactly what Phil says about "I'm Not Sorry." Original title, Rock and Roll Whore.
Yes.
This was the first song we ever wrote as a band. The problem with the song was it sounded like the first song one might write. I thought about that title, and I'm trying to, knowing how they ended up rewriting the lyrics, I'm trying to think how they would make that work with the phrasing in that song. And I said, maybe I'm thinking too much about it. It's okay. I'm always glad when bands put these extra songs out. I want to hear them.
Yeah.
It's okay. Not worthy of the album. But it did answer a question for me, because on Yesterday and Today Live, before they did Beautiful Dreamer, a song we've talked about, we love, Dave says, we're going to do the song we ever wrote together as a band. And I said, well, I wonder what the first one was. Well, now we know.
Yeah.
So, but Mean Streak I think it's a fantastic album. I think that the record sales reflect its excellence, because there's only one other album in their collection I think I've seen more when I'm crate digging. See Mean Streak a fair bit.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And maybe it's because I'm such a fan, and when I see one of their albums, I zoom right in on it. But the artwork is so striking, and it's just so perfect. It's so t-shirt ready, poster ready, back of the jean jacket ready.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
I mean, it's the logo. I don't think the logo ever looked, it's just so cool. Everything on that was perfect. And the more you look at it, like I'll get the vinyl out, the more little details you see in it. Like, you see the, you almost see like how the snake is put together mechanically, it's got the like the rivets or whatever that hold it together. The title Mean Streak is the venom. It's this like, it's just so cool. Always been definitely one of my favorite album covers and favorite albums. So there you go, everyone. That's what we think about Mean Streak. I know it's a well-loved album in the collection. I don't think we've said anything that's quite contrary to what most people are going to say. Yes. And I do have to say that, one thing that I hope that we see from these deep dive episodes is same thing with the book. I hope that people dive into this catalog, and it's not, still to this day, it's not the easiest stuff to find. So, do yourself a favor, wherever it is you get your music from, get yourself some Y&T, and you could do a lot worse than to start off with Mean Streak.
That's true.
Yeah. So, John, I want to thank you once again for sitting in on the deep dive. We're not even close to being through. We get a lot more great Y&T to talk about. So we will see you again next time on Tim's Vinyl Confessions Y&T Deep Dive. Go listen to some Y&T. We'll see you later.